Welcome to another episode of For the Health of It. I'm your host, Corian K. Paget, and today I have with me a friend of mine named Harley Warren. We've been knowing each other for a little over 10 years now, as he just let me know before we got on air. Harley, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Coach, it's good to be here. Like you said, my name's Harley Warren. I am a former equipment manager at the collegiate and professional levels, and I'm here to talk to you about health and fitness, and then spread the word about some different things about sports that your audience may not know about.
All right, good deal. So Harley, man, just go. You mentioned you were a former equipment manager on the college and professional level. Could you go into your background as a high school athlete, maybe, and how did you get started on becoming a equipment manager?
Yeah, I played a little bit of soccer growing up. Played football and ran track in high school. I was actually a licensed soccer official for about 13 years. Okay. So I got a lot of background with that. But my senior year of high school, I quickly realized that I did not have the prototypical collegiate athlete body. So my track coach in high school told my brother and I that maybe we should get into coaching. Uh-huh. And one way to get into coaching is to be an equipment manager. Okay. You know, you're around the team, you're around the coaches, you get to do all the cool stuff. So he hooked us up with Steve Campbell at Mississippi Gulf Coast, and it just started from there. Me and my brother did the equipment manager there for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then after I graduated from Gulf Coast, we went to Southern Miss, and I was at Southern Miss for 3 seasons. After I graduated from Southern Miss, where I was a student equipment manager, I went to grad school, and when I first started grad school, uh-huh. I started an internship with the New Orleans Voodoo of the Arena Football League.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and about halfway through that, I actually got hooked up with the Saints, and it started out as a training camp internship, uh-huh. and that eventually turned into a full season internship. So I was with the Saints for the 2015 season. After I left New Orleans, I went back to Southern Miss to finish my master's degree. I was a graduate assistant in the equipment room for the 2016 season.
Right.
And then I got promoted right before the 2017 season to assistant equipment manager. So I did that for 2 years before I decided to take a little break after the 2018 season.
Okay. So we got a little bit we got to unpack back there. You mentioned not having a prototypical collegiate athlete body. Like I could say I was very similar, Harley. Man, I remember just giving a little bit of background into myself. Sophomore year of high school, I'm sitting around at the house and I'm like, bro, I'm not doing this my whole high school career. I'm going to games, but I ain't finna pay no money. How I'm gonna get into these games? So the football coach at the time was David Russell, and he was actually my driver's ed teacher. So I went up to Coach one day during class and said, Coach, do y'all need a manager? And he said, sure, yeah, definitely, yeah. I said, all right, well, when can I start? And this was like a Wednesday I said that to him. He said, come out on Monday. So I went out. And back then, man, I guess when you were an equipment manager, you were /a water boy. At least at Biloxi you were. So I did that my whole 10th grade career, football season and track season. And he was like, nah, we're going to try you out with football. So my senior year and junior year of high school, I played football. Sucked at it, just to be honest with you. But he, I guess he remembered how well or how good of a job I did being a manager for him. And he reached out to Coach Campbell, also at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. And I don't know if this ever happened to you, but Coach Campbell came to Biloxi High School, walked into the weight room my senior year, walks up on me and says, hey, you're Corian? I said, yes, sir. He was like, well, I heard you want to be a manager. I was like, yeah, definitely. He was like, well, I mean, I'm not here for anybody else. Do you want to do it or not? And I'm like, well, yes, sir. And no offense to anybody on our senior squad, but we did have one guy that came with me to Gulf Coast that played DN, Mario Foster. But
yeah,
that was just a good experience, man. That Coach Campbell actually came and quote unquote recruited me to be an equipment manager. Did he come to George County?
My boy got the official visit.
Right.
No, actually, my track coach, Coach Pearson,
Mm-hmm.
he coached in the Delta for a long time, and he knew Coach Campbell from Delta State.
Right.
So when we went to Bulldog Day our senior year,
right.
Coach Campbell invited us to his office, and me and my brother sat and talked to him for about 20-30 minutes, and he said, "I'll see you boys in August."
Man, that's what's up. That is what's up. Okay, so a little bit more, because I don't know if you know this about me. I was the obviously I mentioned it. I was the equipment manager my first year at Gulf Coast for Coach Campbell. But in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna be able to do this training stuff also, because I wanted to be an athletic trainer instead of a coach.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, I get here and I'm gonna do this. But I really was doing more of the equipment stuff, which I didn't know at the time. They were two totally separate, different things. And I had knew Danny previously to this through Eric, who was the athletic trainer at Biloxi. So, Danny let it be known, all right, well, you can't do both. It's just straight up, you can't. It's too time consuming on both sides, so you'll have to pick one. And I was like, well, Coach Campbell brought me in, I'll just stick with him. This year, we win the national championship. The day we get back from Texas, the Heart of Texas Bowl, I'm in the locker room unloading stuff. Danny's like, so you gonna be with me in January? I'm like, shoot, yeah. So I guess he went from like 5 or 6 people on his staff to the spring he had like 3 or 4, counting me. And I got a chance to work with baseball. The guys that were the equipment manager for the football team before y'all got there, that middle year between 07 and 08, they kind of sucked. So it was good to get y'all in 09, man. Talk a little bit about your equipment manager experience at Gulf Coast.
Yeah, we kind of got thrown in the deep end. I was a lot like you in high school. I assumed that equipment manager and athletic trainer were kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't. We had some water boys, quote unquote, in high school, but I just didn't know what an equipment manager was.
Right.
So, first day, Coach Moore,
Steve Moore,
he said he was quote unquote the equipment manager. And basically, all he taught us how to do was use the washing machine and dryer, and everything else we just kind of figured out on our own.
Right. So Mop didn't teach y'all that?
No. Okay. Coach Moore, after that first day of practice, he said, "Here's the buttons you press. Here's how long you dry the clothes. If you need anything else, just let me know." And that was kind of our opening lesson. They showed us where the tools were. We had the toolbox full of screws and helmet clips and chin straps and all that stuff. And we kind of figured it out as we went, because we played football, so we knew, okay, the screws, they go in these little clips that's on the face mask, and if a screw comes out, you just put another one in.
Right.
So we weren't completely ignorant, but it was definitely a lot more to it than I was expecting.
Okay.
And by the time we left Gulf Coast, pretty much the only thing we didn't do was order uniforms.
Right.
Coach Campbell did that, but as far as like inventory and checking the gear and putting decals on helmets and issuing gear, pretty much after that first couple of weeks, my brother and I handled all of that.
Yeah. And those first couple of weeks were 2-a-days, correct?
Yeah, and it was just me and him.
Yeah.
And we later found out by some of the players that they just assumed we were one person and we were really fast.
Okay, so I don't know if you mentioned that or not, man. Go back. You do have a twin brother. I don't know if that was mentioned earlier, man. Michael is your twin brother. And
yes,
I met both of you, I think, at the same time or either one right after another. That is funny. Man,
I wish I could remember which player told me that, but yeah, about halfway through that season, they were like, "Yeah, I just thought you were really fast."
Man, that is hilarious. Oh my god. I could believe some people saying that too. I could really believe that.
Especially
at Gulf Coast.
Gulf Coast around that time.
Yes. Let's talk about your transition from the junior college level to the traditional college, I guess, 4-year university. How did you end up at Southern Miss?
The spring of my sophomore year, I knew I was going to go to Southern Miss just as a student.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember which coach was there, but he was there recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, coach, I want to be an equipment manager. Who do I need to get in contact with? So he gave me his card, and he eventually got me hooked up with Patrick Stewart at Southern Miss.
Right.
And me and him talked. Me and my brother, Michael wound up not being a student manager because he was more into the coaching.
Okay.
But we wound up taking a visit to Southern, and they showed us around, and that spring, Pat was like, "Yeah, if you want to do it, we need you." So I joined the team that fall.
Man, that's what's up. So at Gulf Coast, before we get off of Gulf Coast, were you only worked with football, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you get to Southern Miss, it's fall 2011.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, we that was a lot different than Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, at Gulf Coast, it was just me and my brother.
Right.
At Southern Miss, there were like 10 of us, so I didn't have to do quite as much, but it was still a lot more intense, a lot more players, because JUCO has
have 55,
60 players.
Yeah.
At Southern Miss for fall camp, we had 115.
Ooh.
So that was different.
Mm-hmm.
And it took some getting used to, but that wound up being a really good year for us. We went 12-2, won the conference championship, played in the Hawaii Bowl, so I got a ring.
Okay.
I got a ring my second year at Gulf Coast, and then my first year at Southern Miss. So I was flying high there for a little while. And then my last 2 years at Southern Miss, as you know, as a graduate, we went 1-23. So
right.
I came crashing down to earth pretty quickly.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So were you a equipment manager all those years at Southern Miss?
Yeah.
Okay.
The way it worked at Southern is every sport kind of has their own managers.
Right.
It wasn't like at Gulf Coast where like you did some stuff with baseball and football.
Mm-hmm. So
I just worked at football, but baseball had managers, softball had managers, and stuff like that. So for the 3 years at Southern, I was just doing football practices and games and all that.
Right. So you said you worked with worked with football at Southern Miss. Now, okay, so at Southern Miss was what kind of school at that time?
Division I.
Okay.
At the highest level, Conference USA.
Okay. As far as gear wise.
Oh, that first year we were Nike.
Mm-hmm.
No, my first 2 years we were Nike.
Okay.
My last year at Southern Miss, we were Russell.
Okay. Any particular reason why they switched from Nike to Russell?
Well, yeah, it was a weird time at Southern. We went from an interim AD to a full-time AD.
Right.
And the interim AD was there during the Nike transition. So he signed the deal with Russell because Russell, from what I understood, offered us the most money and the most free gear. Right. Because when you sign a deal with a athletic apparel company, they say it's worth $5 million. The company's not giving you $5 million. Right. They're giving you, over the course of the contract,
$5 million worth of gear.
Let's just say $5 million worth of gear.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's how, teams get uniforms, and especially with football, because football is the biggest advertiser for the university. That's why the football coaches always have, the newest polo that you see at the bookstore, or the newest hoodie or jacket or hat, because the Russell, or later on Adidas, they give you that money so you can buy the stuff for free or a percentage off. Let's just say half price.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then that just becomes a giant commercial for that company, to where you go to the bookstore and you can buy the same polo that the head coach is wearing.
Gotcha.
And so apparently, from what I understood, Russell gave us the most free gear, essentially.
Okay. Now we're gonna go back to that in a little bit, and if I start losing my mind, catch me on it. But I want to talk to you, man. Let's get away from the sports a little bit. Well, not a little bit, and just a twinge here. What was your major?
At Gulf Coast, it was secondary education with history, and then at Southern Miss, it was sport coaching education, and I had a history minor. Okay. Because I had the intentions when I got to Southern Miss to be a teacher and a coach. Right. But after being there for a couple years, I kind of really enjoyed being an equipment manager and being in collegiate athletics.
Okay. So did you change your major, or you stayed as a coaching major?
No, I graduated with that degree.
Okay. Good deal.
I didn't. They have a sport management program, but still thought I wanted to be a coach, so I just kept it with that program.
Gotcha. I understand. So you let's go back into the management side, the sports management side, equipment side of it. You mentioned having an internship with the New Orleans Voodoo, who was a team part of the now defunct AFL. That league is defunct, correct?
Yeah, they finally kicked the bucket after this past season.
Oh wow, it was still going on like a year ago?
The league itself was, the Voodoo. Right. I was part of the last team.
Okay. So let's talk about, how did you get that internship? How did you apply to that internship? How did you like it? And how many years were you there?
Yeah, it was the spring of 2015, so I was working on my master's, because the coaching thing, I didn't find a job that I liked, so I went back to school to get my master's.
Hold up. So you already at this point you had already graduated with your bachelor's, right?
Yeah, I graduated in 14.
Okay, so
and the fall of 2014, I was just looking for a job.
Gotcha. So
and then the spring of 2015, I went back to school to get my master's.
Gotcha. So correct me if I'm wrong. Was that you or your brother or both at George County my second year at Biloxi?
That was both of us. Okay. For my last 2 springs as an undergraduate student, I was a practicum track and field coach at George County.
Gotcha. And which one went back? Which one of you? I'm sorry, I'm mixing y'all up, man. I sound like those football players. Which one of you went back to Gulf Coast for a little bit?
Michael did.
Gotcha.
I think he did. That was the fall of 2012.
Okay.
He went to be a student coach because he was getting his practicum.
Gotcha.
And then the spring of 2013, we both went to George County. And then the spring of 2014, we were both finishing up our degrees and had moved back home, and we were volunteer coaches and full-time students and working at. We both worked at Domino's too.
Okay.
We couldn't get away from each other.
Hey, that's how it goes when you're twins, man. My wife's not a twin, but her and her sister look very much alike, and they do everything together, man. I ain't gonna make that joke. I don't want to get cussed out. But so how did you get your internship with the New Orleans Voodoo?
I'd always been a fan of the team, so I followed them on all their social medias, and they had a post on Facebook or Twitter saying they had an internship meeting one night. So I drove from Hattiesburg to New Orleans one night and went to this meeting, and they just said, okay, whenever we can fit into your schedule, you just come by and do whatever. So for the first few weeks I was there, I was just going on game day.
Right.
Because I was still a student, and I was actually doing an internship at Southern Miss with the equipment room too.
Okay.
So I would just go on game day and just kind of help out whatever they needed. And then when the spring semester at Southern Miss ended, I was able to go to New Orleans more and actually go to practices and see more of what they do besides what they just did on game day. Gotcha. And it was an eye-opening experience for sure.
How so?
Well, my first day, the first thing I did there was me and some of the other interns and even their general manager had to put the padded walls up, and we had to put the ads on the padded walls because they hadn't touched them since last season. So all the new ads, we had to stick them on the walls and make sure they weren't crooked and they were cut in the right places and all the pads were still working.
Right.
So that was my first thing I did there. And then
was this in the Smoothie King arena?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where they played their games at, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the year before they played in the Superdome.
Okay.
Which that would have been interesting to be a part of. But when I was able to go to practice more, we had to, put up the inflatable wall.
Okay.
Because they practiced on a regulation-sized field.
Right.
But they had a three-sided wall that they would scrimmage in to match the walls that they play with during game day. And it was just a big inflatable, heavy, humongous wall that you had to roll out every day and blow up. And if there was an event going on, because it was at City Park in New Orleans.
Okay.
So if there was an event, we had to take the wall down and roll it up and find somewhere to put it. Or they would go. One time they actually did have an event, and they didn't tell us, and they took everyone's stuff from the locker room and just threw it in bags and put it in a closet. So they came back from a road trip, and I was at practice, and they were like, "Hey, we got to find everybody's stuff because we got practice at 30 minutes." So we had to dig through bags and find people's clothes and shoes and helmets and
mouthpieces.
Mouthpieces. It was. I thought professional football was professional football.
Right.
and it wasn't. the Arena League was definitely something different. You know who worked with me there, right?
I do not.
George Bradley. You remember him?
I don't. Who is that?
He was the stat guy for Gulf Coast football. He was the AD's right hand man.
He was Lad Taylor's right hand man.
Yeah.
Okay.
He traveled with football, but he just sat in the press box all day and ate hot dogs and did stats.
Okay. I think I know who you're talking about. I don't have to look him up. I'll make sure I get who that recognize his face and whatnot. So,
yeah, you probably would.
So you were actually being the equipment manager at Southern Miss and for the Voodoo at one point at the same time?
Yeah, the Voodoo had a full-time equipment manager,
right?
But he was an older guy, and like a month into the season, he was like, "I need shoulder surgery," so he went back home to Florida, and so the two other interns who kind of like did video and kind of did football ops, they kind of were just there doing anything.
Right.
They kind of took over equipment, and I would go down there and help as much as I could.
Gotcha.
And they offered me the full-time job, but I had just accepted the position as an intern with the Saints. So I was like, sorry, I can't be here full-time. So they gave it to one of the interns, which the team wound up folding at the end of the year anyway.
Right. So yeah,
I kind of dodged a bullet then.
Yeah, you did the right thing. Okay. So you're at this point you're working on your master's, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and what were you getting your master's in?
Sport management.
Okay. So how do you get the internship with the Saints?
John Bumgardner is the head equipment manager there, and he actually played football at Southern Miss.
Yeah, I know him. Well, I know the name.
The early 2000s.
Right.
So he knew Pat, and you know, when I was in the equipment room at Southern, Pat was trying to help me get some internships in the NFL, and I was like, I grew up a Saints fan,
right? Still
am. So I was like, man, it'd be really cool if I can get a job with the Saints. Just kind of like halfway joking, and then
you want a job with the Saints? I can get you a job with the Saints.
Yeah. a few days later, I'm getting an email from Bum saying, "Hey, I heard you're interested in doing an internship with us." So it was just supposed to be OTAs and training camp, but the longer I was there, it just kind of turned into a full season thing. So I was really blessed to fall into that situation.
Okay. So let's talk about one important thing I think I missed out on, scholarships and payment wise. I know I was paid. I was not paid. I was on a scholarship when I was at Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
Were you?
My brother and I both had academic scholarships.
Okay.
So the first year we were supposed to get football scholarships.
Right.
But I don't think we ever did. I think Coach Campbell forgot to turn in the paperwork.
Okay.
So the next year he told us, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you guys scholarships," and we were both on full rides, so we were like, "Nah, we don't need it," and they gave it to like the video guys.
Oh, okay, that's sweet of y'all.
So, yeah, so the video guys we went to high school with.
Okay.
So we were trying to help them out some. So I don't think I ever got paid to be an equipment manager at Gulf Coast,
okay.
But at Southern Miss I was on scholarship.
Got you. So go into depth or go into detail of how that worked, the scholarship at Southern Miss, because at Gulf Coast all I know is they gave me an X amount, and then that X amount was for both fall and spring.
Yeah, they would you would come in, they give you a certain amount for the fall and spring, and then the next year it would go up a little bit.
Yeah.
So you'd have that for the fall and spring, and then your senior year it would go up I think by the time I graduated, I had almost a half scholarship.
Okay.
So yeah, it was very helpful. It was great. They've kind of changed their policies now with financial stuff, but
right.
Kids are still getting scholarships.
Okay. That's what I was curious about. I don't know if when I get a student athletic trainer on here, or athletic trainer that was a student trainer at Southern Miss, I'm gonna ask them about that, because I know, again, I got a scholarship at Gulf Coast, but I never did athletic training or anything close to it after I left Gulf Coast, so I don't know how that worked. I was just curious how the equipment management side worked.
Yeah, I know the athletic trainer at Southern, they always have fundraisers and whatnot, but I couldn't tell you, how it works after that.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about one thing I do know about you, Harley. I know that while you were at Gulf Coast, you worked with a couple guys who you eventually ended up working with again at Southern Miss, and then with another one on the Saints. The guy at Southern Miss was Kelvin Bolden, aka Peanut. And the guy with the Saints was John. So talk about the meeting up with Peanut, or Kelvin, Coach Bolden, as he is known now. Meeting up with Coach Bolden from Gulf Coast to Southern Miss, isn't that crazy? Because they're what, an hour apart from Perk to Hattiesburg, and then again, it's literally right there. But John went from Gulf Coast to Georgia, right? And then you went to Hattiesburg. Now, it just so happened that he was drafted to the Saints, and then you started interning with the Saints. Go into detail about meeting back up with John.
Yeah, me and John were actually pretty cool at Gulf Coast. He was from Maryland, I think.
Right.
So he would always have to fly into the airport, and me and my brother, or me and one of the other video guys, would always have to go get him from the airport. So we were pretty cool. And then after I went to Southern and he went to Georgia, when we met up with the Saints, he saw me in the equipment room because he just got done working out. And you would have thought he saw like his long lost brother or something. He was so happy to see me. He thought it was so cool that someone from Gulf Coast like him wound up in the NFL. And he'd always tell his other D linemen or his other coaches who like, "Yeah, man, me and him are from the same place." JUCO boys and all that stuff.
That's what's up, man.
He always treated me right at Gulf Coast, and then at the Saints. It was pretty cool to meet up with him. And I actually, you were gone by the time he got there, but Don Jones,
right? He
played at Gulf Coast too, and he was with the Saints for a little while whenever I was there. So we had three Gulf Coast guys on the team.
Three? Who was the third?
Well, maybe me.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay, but no, definitely, man. I had a semester with John Jenkins, man. He was a good dude, man. Definitely was a good dude.
Yeah.
I hate the fact, I don't know what it was, man, but I remember me and you and your brother and your sister-in-law, who was your brother's girlfriend at the time, we all rode down from Gulf Coast to Biloxi to watch Biloxi versus George County. Our two schools going at it. I can't remember who won the game, but I just remember being...
Probably George County.
Probably so, if you should be honest. I just remember being sick the next day, and it was game day for us. I think it might have been homecoming, because we don't usually play games on Saturday. So I'm pretty sure it was homecoming, and I missed the first time John ran the ball in an actual game. I was so upset, man. I was so sick. It had to be like either food poisoning or like something simple, because I felt better that night, but that day of the game and the next morning I felt great, but that Saturday morning up until about 5 p.m. I felt horrible. But man, I really wish that I would have been there for that.
I think that may have been against Kahoma. He had a big run in that game.
Yeah, it was like 30 yards, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, my roommate who's one of my best buds, man, he was like, man, you missed it, man. That video doesn't do it justice, Corey. And I was like, man, I wish I would have been there. Man, that would have been a great experience. So, were you with the Saints when Vic tried to get when Vic was trying out for the team?
Yeah, after the season, I was there for a little while longer before I went to Southern, and I'm pretty sure I was there the day he tried out.
Gotcha.
I know we talked for a minute.
Okay. And for everybody listening, that's Vic Ballard. Just to make sure everybody understands, we weren't talking about any other Vic, but the real Vic Ballard. So Harley, let's talk about why did you leave the Saints?
Just because it was an internship.
Gotcha.
And at Southern, when I was with the Saints, I had stopped taking my master's classes. Oh. So, the fall of 2016, a graduate assistant spot opened up at Southern. So I decided to go back there to try to finish my degree.
Okay. So you go back to Southern Miss, and this is
the
2017?
Fall of 2016.
Okay. Oh, so you were there in the fall of 2016?
Yeah.
So you were yeah, that's the year I was there. I'm thinking 2017. All right, so I'm back on track. All right, so you get back at 2016. I get there. I'm interning with the strength staff. Again, two Gulf Coast guys meeting up again. So at that time, Southern Miss was coming off of a pretty successful season. I think the year before they finished second in conference. So I got my internship with the strength staff, reached out to Coach Woodfin. He reached back and was like, yeah, come on up. And it was good seeing you back there, man. So talk about your second, this is your second round at Southern Miss now, right?
Yeah.
And you were a graduate assistant, but you were pretty much higher up in terms of other graduate assistants or interns, right?
Yeah, at Southern it kind of goes, there's 2 full-time guys, a graduate assistant, and then 8 to 10 students. So the first time I was one of the students, but the second time I got to Southern, I was kind of like third in charge,
gotcha.
Behind the 2 full-time guys.
Right. Okay. So how was your second time at Southern Miss?
That 2016 season was really fun. We beat Kentucky that first game. I think we were down 21 at some point.
Yeah, we were down like 3 touchdowns at one point.
Yeah.
And then Nick Mullins, I won't say the exact words the coach said at this time. I'm trying to keep this thing G-rated. But Nick Mullins actually ended up, I think he threw for like 5 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah, we kind of blew up in the second half.
Yeah.
Beat Kentucky. So that was cool. But, as a GA, I had a lot more responsibilities.
Right.
Which I actually liked. I liked, having to do more at practice instead of just working with my position coach as a student. Mm-hmm. As a graduate assistant, I helped out with the coaches a little bit. But then I also had to help the assistant with time, making sure the practice clock was on time, and if anything happened, fixing helmets and shoulder pads. If a cleat broke, trying to get that taken care of. So I had a few more responsibilities, day to day as a graduate assistant, which I liked a lot. I like being busy.
Okay, good deal. So you go from being the GA, and then the other guy moves on. The other, and you get the position as the assistant equipment manager. How was that?
It was great. I had a lot more responsibilities with that. As a GA, you pretty much just kind of do football,
right?
And then you help out some with baseball and softball, doing their uniform laundry.
Okay.
And you kind of have your hands on all the sports, like with inventory and whatnot.
Okay.
But as the assistant, it was my job to oversee track and field for men's and women's, cross country, men's and women's tennis, and women's soccer, as well as assisting with football practice and games.
Okay. So go in a little bit in depth about working with each sport or keeping inventory for each sport. How exactly does that go?
Yeah, I was kind of in charge of ordering. I would meet with the coaches. We'd meet several times during the preseason to order gear for the next year. They would give me approximate roster size and like the different sizes that they wanted ordered, and I would do my best to fit it within their budget.
Right.
Like I said earlier, that $5 million, let's just say, over a certain 5 years.
Gotcha.
That doesn't just go to football.
Okay.
A majority of it does, because football is the biggest sport and it's the biggest advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
But other sports also get that quote unquote free money.
Gotcha.
So, like track, they would get like $50,000, and you'd have to order within that budget of free money, and then the budget from the university with real cash, whatever you couldn't get with that free money, you'd get with the university budget, as well as other stuff they needed, like throwing implements and pads for high jump and pole vault and hurdles and all the other stuff that's not apparel. I kind of had to, with the coaches, oversaw that ordering as well.
Oh wow! I didn't see. That's what I did not know, Harley. Okay.
Yeah.
So at this time, Southern Miss is still Russell.
My first year as an assistant, yeah, we were still Russell.
Okay, so, but not everybody at Southern Miss was Russell, correct? Baseball was Under Armour, I think.
Yeah, it was. I don't know all the details because this happened as a student, whenever I was a student.
Mm-hmm.
But with the interim AD, he had Russell. And then when the new AD came in, he didn't want Russell. So, like, each individual sport kind of had pre-existing contracts.
Right.
So that's why, like, women's basketball was Nike.
Right.
And baseball was Under Armour. Because the new AD just told them to keep those deals going because he didn't want to be with Russell.
Gotcha. So, is everybody at Southern Miss now Adidas, or do you not know that?
Yeah, every Adidas was all-encompassing, all sports, all managers, trainers, video, athletic department, even the Student Eagle Club.
Okay.
Is Adidas T-shirts now. So yeah, the whole university is Adidas.
Oh man, nothing against Russell. I don't want to talk bad about anybody's brand, but there's something about those big three, man. Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, Reebok way back when. I want to ask you, Harley, about your favorite brand out of those three, or out of Nike, Adidas, and Russell.
Well, right now it's Adidas.
Okay.
I'd never really worn Adidas before until we swapped over at Southern Miss. But the Adidas stuff that I have now is really good. And then I like Russell. I like Russell more than I like Nike. I know a lot of people probably cringe when I say that, but it was just more comfortable to me.
Okay.
The football jerseys didn't look good, but the material of the football jerseys were much better with Russell than they were with Nike.
That's interesting. Go into that. Go into how the working with the different materials you actually got to see, because I mean nobody would know more than you actually, and that's why I invited you on. You saw the tears, the rips. You actually probably had to sew a couple jerseys together. Can you talk about that? about what apparel company had the best quality?
Well, luckily we had a seamstress at Southern Miss, so I never had to learn how to sew.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like durability and like stretchiness and all that stuff, I still think Russell was the best option we had. The Adidas jerseys are nice. Like they're really good technology, especially the new. I forgot the name of the new ones they came out with, but they look really good. But to me, I the numbers. There's different kinds of numbers on uniforms. There's iron-on, which is kind of what you had in high school, probably.
Right.
Then there's tackle twill, which is kind of a thicker number. It's like stitched on really well. That's what they wear in the pros.
Okay.
And Russell had something that was kind of in between. It was like the numbers were the same material as the jersey, so it was stitched on, but the number was also stretchy. So, like, tackle twill is thick, so it kind of like breaks apart easier.
Right.
And you have to do more repairs. With Russell, since it was stretchy and it moved with the uniform, to me it seemed like it was had a lot less repairs throughout the year than Adidas and Nike. The Nike uniforms we had my last year were doo-doo. I'm just honest with you, because we knew we weren't re-signing with Nike, so we didn't really order a bunch of new Nike uniforms. So the ones we had were kind of older, and they weren't great.
Quick question: how is it with ordering jerseys at the start of the year? Say number 16 for USM tears his jersey during the first game. Do y'all have a replacement jersey, or how does that work?
Well, most of the time we can just get it repaired, like stitched up.
Okay.
We had a seamstress that we would go through the uniforms every Sunday or Monday and go through each one, and just any holes or any imperfections that we came across, we would write down, and she would fix them for us. But let's just say, like in 2012, this actually happened. Our quarterback got hit against Western Kentucky and like messed his neck up, and the trainer, instead of cutting on the seams like you normally do, he cut across the middle of the jersey.
Wow.
So it pretty much ruined the jersey.
Okay.
So we have blank jerseys, and we have numbers that we can get stitched on or pressed on with a heat press onto the jersey. It's not, obviously it won't be the same quality as the one that we ordered,
right?
But it'll get you through the season.
Okay.
Because you can't just order one. You can order one jersey, but it's going to be really expensive.
Right.
You normally have to order those things in bulk.
Gotcha.
So if one jersey tears up and you can't fix it, you just have to make a new one the best you can.
Okay. So when you say they were blank jerseys, it probably just said Southern Miss, but no number on it?
Yeah, it's just blank. It has Southern Miss. It would have whatever company we were with at the time, their logo, and the Conference USA logo. And then we would have to get the numbers on there. Okay.
So let me ask you this, Harley. You had your time at Southern Miss. You had your time with the Saints. I know a guy that is trying to start a clothing brand, a sports apparel brand. What recommendations would you give to him as far as getting his materials to colleges?
Well, the first thing I would probably recommend is getting into the high schools first.
Okay.
Just because with colleges, at least at the Division I level, and now more and more into the other divisions, they sign apparel deals with companies that last several years. So if you can get it into the high schools, all your local high schools first, and then work your way up, you know, the high school kids, that's your clientele.
Right.
And those kids eventually go to college. So if you have enough of those kids wearing your stuff, and then they go to college, you know, that's a better. I would think that'd be better advertising for when you want to go to a Division I school and say, hey, here's my brand. You know, here's the former players who have worn it, and they could testify to how good they think it is, and go from there. But I would just try to get as many local high schools in it as I could.
Okay. All right. And before we get out of here, Harley, we're running short on time. Give me a list of probably 3 of your favorite athletes, because you worked with a whole bunch. In any sport, 3 of your favorite athletes you ever worked with, high school, college, pro, it doesn't matter.
Well, like we said earlier, John.
Okay.
Just because he's one that I probably knew the longest. Drew Brees was actually really nice. Like he actually knew my name, which he didn't have to. I was just an intern, but he was really nice. And I got just the specialists, the kickers and long snappers at Southern Miss as a whole, because I worked with a lot of them pretty close, and I don't want to leave any of them out. So just the specialists as a group.
All right, that works. That works for me, man. Before we get out of here, man, I do want to say I really appreciate you doing this for me, man. It's something different to change up the scene. I'm gonna pair up your episode with the guy that's working on starting his sports apparel brand. But before we get out of here, Harley, let's give your social media accounts a shout out.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HarleyWarren09. I have a Facebook, but nobody does Facebook anymore. So Twitter is probably the best way to follow me. I'm pretty active on there.
All right, cool. Well, again, Harley, appreciate you being on, man.
Yeah, man, no problem. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you.